We've got a lava lamp. If you want to say hail the lava lamp, fantastic. That helps. We actually have a sponsor who's doing us a favor, just giving away lava lamps to listeners. Not making any money out of it, but it's fun.
All you're missing is a Barry White track in the background now.
We need to go into scented candles, Alex.
Yes.
We need to get into scented candles.
Get the mankini
It's
out.
a bit of a love pad sort of 60s thing, isn't it? Mike Myers.
Hi everyone and welcome to another Sunday Rolls. Great to have you all back once again, and we're here with two special guests but friends of the show once again. For those who aren't familiar with us and our guests, maybe we can start with Rob from Truth to Power. Can you tell us a bit about your channel?
Yeah, thanks, Max. Yeah, channel's been going about a year and a half now, and we sort of major on Brexit, everything Brexit, and everything to do with Tory corruption. Truth to Power, it happens to be the Tories that are in government at the moment. I guess we'll start picking the Labour Party apart once they get in power in a couple of years' time. We'll see.
Oh, that's a great segue.
Hello, I'm Blase, and my channel, I think it's been going about, is it nearly 2.5, 3 years, and I've basically scratched out on all sorts, and then I just seem to have settled into the niche of just finding little golden nuggets of either hilarity or stupidity within the House of Commons, or getting a Tory MP getting his backside handed in to him in a cross-party select committee meeting, and that's how it really, I suppose.
We'll leave a link to both of your channels in the description of this video. Alex, can you tell us about yourself, my wonderful co-host?
Hi, I'm Alex, also known as Political X. I run a YouTube channel. I'm a historian and an author. And my wonderful co-host, Max, can you introduce yourself?
Thank you very much. My name is Max. I run the Robespierre channel. We talk mainly about Brexit and British politics in general, and I respond to videos in generally when it's about Parliament or politics or other political commentators. So, Alex, what's our first topic for this morning?
There's so much to choose. There's so much. I mean, we're talking off air as well just about this. Like, it's just nuts what we're dealing with. So we've got Brexit. We've got Starmer's Labour policies, which I think we all want to dig a little bit into, especially as we've had someone ask us to moderate a debate over that very topic. Within Brexit, you've got no fruit and veg within the UK, voter ID, and maybe if we've got time, we'll talk about Theresa Coffey. But we'll see. So I reckon let's go into it, because Rob kicked us off with Labour policies. Starmer's obviously done this wonderful speech that kept everyone's attention. What are your thoughts on that, Rob?
Well, it was very bland. It was basically 5 what he called mission statements. It's meant to be, breaking the mold, all that nonsense, long-term policies and all the rest of it. But I made a note of the first one here. The first of these 5 missions is to secure the highest sustained growth in the G7. Quite how we do that while making Brexit work, I'm not at all sure. But the problem is, Alex, that his other 4 missions are all predicated on the fact that he's going to make Britain have the highest sustained growth in the G7. So, if that card doesn't stack up, then I guess the House of Cards is going to fall. So it's a tricky one. I wasn't impressed, to be honest with you.
Really?
The jury's very much out with me. I was a big fan of, if not Corbyn himself, then definitely the Corbyn agenda, the Corbyn manifesto. I was 4 square behind. But I'm just getting the feeling that Keir Starmer just constantly disappoints me, to be honest. And this latest speech today, I don't think is going to win him any new converts, to be honest. I mean, the jury's still out with him. Is he Tory light? Is he not? Is he a traitor to the Corbyn ideals? Time will tell. Still, I'm still undecided.
Do you think the Tories would actually do any of the policies he suggested then, Rob?
You coming back to this Tory light point? Because no, I don't think they would. Because I think they are more of a sort of social democratic mould, which is, after all, what the Labour Party is meant to encompass. And, there are certainly the ideas that I really like, this idea of moving energy back towards public ownership, I think is a fantastic move, and I'd like to see more of it. I'd like to see all the basic services of life brought back under state control, if I'm honest, from water to energy to telecoms. Sign me up for that. But one step at a time. And to be fair, he has floated this idea of energy GB, or whatever they're going to call it, the centralised state-owned or publicly owned.
So we will set up Great British Energy within the first year of a Labour government. A new company that takes advantage of the opportunities in clean British power. And because it is right for jobs, because it is right for growth, because it is right for energy independence from tyrants like Putin, then yes, conference, Great British Energy will be publicly owned.
Can I, before we bring in Darren, I just wanted to ask a question. This can be, well, anyone can respond to this. Do you think that this policy of bringing energy under state ownership, bringing it back under state ownership, is a response to the energy crisis? And is there a risk that once this energy crisis is resolved, in a sense, once we move away from it, do you think that this policy could be dropped? Do you, maybe I'm being overly cynical, that I'm thinking that maybe this is a policy he's bringing in now because it's popular, but maybe if the issue goes away, the policy will go away as well. Does anyone have any response to that?
You playing devil's advocate, Max?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good point. I mean, at heart, these people that are saying Keir Starmer is just Tory light, if that's true, then you're probably right, Max. It could just be a vote winner. Is his heart in the idea of state ownership?
If he was pushing the policy, I would assume there's a level of him wanting to do it. I mean, there's obviously part of the influence of the actual Labour Party itself. And I believe that all these things have to be voted for and approved, essentially, by the unions. So workers, essentially. I would. That's quite an interesting thing. Is it where is some of this coming from? Because I always wondered with all the other previous people that have gone through. There was also Tony Blair and Brown as well, which seemed to be a bit of a conflict. It was almost like Blair was sort of centrist, maybe centre right, and Brown was the one that was like sort of, hold on, no, that's not Labour policy. But obviously Labour's a bit more democratic than Conservatives. Would that be fair to say? Let's bring that over to Darren. Darren, what are your thoughts on both?
Well, the thing is, when it comes to this Tory light, there's a couple of things I don't really understand why. Because first thing, if it's Tory light, why don't you just join the Tories then? Would it be how many years have the Tories been in power? Over generations? Far many times than Labour. So what's the point in being in opposition? More chance of being in government as a Tory. And second, he was a human rights lawyer, and there have been few stories of where he dedicated his time for nothing. How many Tory MPs would do that? So there's little. We're always going to disagree politically and on all things. We're not always going to agree on everything. But when it came to 2019, many times, if you have a slight disagreement with the leader, that's it. You were told to go and join the Tories. And then when it came to the election, it was a case of, why did you vote Tory? Well, you told us to. you know what I mean? A little bit. Well, but now the thing is, I was listening to James O'Brien, and he was talking to Theo Usherwood, and Theo Usherwood watched the speech, and his jest on the idea was, he feels that it was designed that way, to sound like somebody who you can trust. There's no glitz and glamour, you know what I mean? Because you get all that stuff from like Bojo and people like that, just talk undiluted twaddle, talk about Peppa Pig World and stuff like that. And he said he wanted to show himself as a steady pair of hands, somebody who can be trusted. Now, whether it'll work or not, I don't know. But well, I did think, I listened to bits and bats, and I got the feeling when it came to reading a speech, you can tell he's improved a little bit. But I still won't want to listen to a full one though. I just heard excerpts. Still wouldn't want to listen to a full one because I think I'll just, even after about 10 minutes, I'll go.
But is it a case? It's like, he's running a race and he's like a mile ahead of the Tories.
Yeah.
And he doesn't. He's like, okay, just keep going the way I'm going, because if I don't want to try something different because I risk falling behind. Yeah. And like, I don't know if it's a case of him being bland because he's bland, or him being bland because he wants to just don't rock the boat, just keep going straight, keep your head down. Look, there's a chance that you're going to win a massive majority, and don't. And also and this is something Phil from A Different Bias has mentioned a lot, is that his focus is on winning. His focus is not so much on policy. The policy will come after. First, I have to get in, and then I can implement. And the thing is that people today are not really focusing on policy because there isn't an election at the moment. So you could present a policy. I know he's already presented some policies like GBA, Great British Energy, and boosting growth, but until there's a real manifesto, there's no point really going into too much detail. And I've said this before: there needs to be some sort of vision, but it can't be too detailed. It has to be very high level, because as soon as you start going into detail, then you have to defend that detail, and then you'll have to explain how it's going to be paid for. And you're talking about an economy at least 2 years, well, maybe 2 years away. You've no way of predicting what it's going to be like.
Yeah, I also think it's in his character as well. I just think that's the way he is. It's like, I've heard it a couple of times that as a judge, there are two types of judges. There is jury friendly and judge friendly, whereas judges, lawyers, jury friendly or judge friendly, and like when it comes to the jury, one of them lawyers that come alive and influence the jury, where he'd be one of them where he's not quite as extroverted as all like that. He's more introverted, isn't he? I suppose, in a way. And I think he would be one of a judge favourite, you know what I mean? Where he gets deep into all the this and that and the other, whereas most people who are in a jury, they're not really gonna get that deep, and they'll probably find it all boring. They'll just say, "Yeah, he's guilty because his eyebrows meet," you know. Yeah, he's guilty. Look at them eyes. But yeah, I just think that's in his nature as well. If he tried to be something like Bojo, he'd look incredibly stupid and he'd look incredibly fake, wouldn't he? I just get the feeling that's just the way he is as well.
Alex?
Darren, have you been in court quite a bit?
How did you guess? No, actually, I've only went in once, and that was to visit. By school to try and persuade us from going into a life of crime. That was about it.
So I'd like to play a bit of devil's advocate here. It's almost like actually a political A-level question that they'll be asking students in 20 years. Is it the Tories that have caused their loss, or is it Starmer that has caused their loss in this election? But I'll throw that to Rob.
We all know the answer to that question, Alex. It's that the current lead of the Tory party over the Labour Party over the Tories is completely about the Tories. It's not to do with Keir Starmer for one second. And my concern is he's being Mr. Safe Hands, being I'm better than the Tories. You can trust me. I'm not Jeremy Corbyn. And, as Max was saying, at the moment, it doesn't matter. Okay, there's no election looming over the horizon, but we're going to get to the point where the general election date is announced. The Tory machine and Tufton Street are going to kick into action. The millions of pounds in their war chest is going to come into play. You watch that lead evaporate as we get near, because Starmer has not created a brand. And he's just, I'm afraid that lead is just going to get blown away once we actually do get into the election proper. Forget about this 20, 25 point lead, whatever it is. It's just going to go once Tufton Street and the Tory war chest is put into play. I'm really concerned about it. I think there's a lot of complacency around. And I think Starmer should be using this time to create a brand, to put some better policies in place than the nonsense he came out with today. These long-term wish lists, basically, all predicated on the UK having the biggest growing economy in the G7, which is just pie in the sky with Brexit. You know, it's just nonsense. So as you can tell, I'm very frustrated with Starmer today.
Do you have an idea of what type of brand you'd like to see him pumping out?
Well, it's just something a bit more sort of, you know, at the moment he's centrist dad, isn't he? Basically, I'm not Jeremy Corbyn, you know, and he's going too far the other way. You know, he's trying to distance himself from Corbyn, and you know, Sunak occasionally comes out with these attack lines, doesn't he? About, oh, you served in Jeremy Corbyn's cabinet. But I think Starmer is trying to go too far the other way to get that distance. I'm not Jeremy Corbyn. No, but you're meant to be a bloody democratic socialist. You know, show us something.
There's a lot of the pushback Starmer gets seems to be from within the party.
Yeah,
and party supporters. While I'm thinking he's looking at the voters, and the voters probably are. Yeah, we just want, you know, the
centrist dad.
Centrist dad. Sorry. This is the feeling I'm getting, is that his focus is less on the members, and you know, people like ourselves, commentators. He's not really listening to us, but he's listening to maybe polling, especially in the marginal seats where they just want somebody boring. They don't want they don't want another run of Boris Johnson. But then we don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, and listen, I don't happen to be a Labour Party member at the moment. I have been, and I probably will be again in the future. I'm very careful that I think it's got to be constructive criticism with Keir Starmer. I'm not like, you watch somebody like Owen Jones, for example, who, you know, is very entertaining, but, you know, they're almost like the enemy within the camp, as far as I'm concerned. You know, one thing that these right-wingers are very good at on the Tory side, they stick together, they show unity. You might argue, yeah, there's lots of civil war in the Tory party, but, you know, there's been no big rebellion so far. But us on the left, we're just too quick to just turn into a circular firing squad. And I don't want to be that person that's always having a go at Keir Starmer, saying he's bloody Tory-like. Not at all. But I think there is room for constructive criticism. The jury's out for me with Starmer. Like I say, I'm not one side or the other, really, with him.
Would you say the same, Darren?
Well, I live in a red wall seat, and a lot of my friends who will either vote UKIP, and they are either English Democrat Party or even the Reclaim Party, whatever Farage likes to call them, whatever they're going to call themselves next week, and they're just itching and waiting for him to say that we are going to be rejoining the European Union. They're just itching for him to say it. and I still hear it up here. Even now, I still hear it. So I understand why he doesn't want to go anywhere near it.
Did these people back Boris in 2019?
Yes, some did. Yeah. I used to read the Facebook feeds with absolute hilarity. You know, when he prorogued Parliament, he was there arguing, I voted to leave for sovereignty and all that, and then he's giving, you get him told, Boris, yeah, lock them all out. And you start there thinking, you do realise he's just taking away your sovereignty, your rights. And it's, actually, this is the same bloke who was wandering around Bradford with a Tommy Robinson t-shirt, and you just think, well, we'll just leave it there, you know what I mean?
Cross the street.
Yeah.
Charles I did the same.
Yeah,
Charles I prorogued Parliament. That didn't go down well.
Yeah, exactly.
There was a lot of people defending it, weren't there?
Yeah. See, the thing is, this guy, whenever he gets into this political rant, I'm like, you know that gif you see of Homer Simpson just going backwards into the bushes? That's me.
I'm just here for a pint. Let me have it.
Yeah. Yes, but yeah, it's. I would like him to show a bit more. I understand where Rob come from, because he's a bit boring, but you get the feeling he's doing it because he doesn't want to frighten off Middle England. That's the feeling I'm getting, and I think if he gets a bit more, if he puts on his Citizen Smith's hat on, power to the bill, that's it. They're going to vote Tory, aren't they? So I think that's what he'll do. That's the reason why he's. And also, I still do think that's in his nature. I just think I don't think that's his character. I don't think he's that. I don't think it's that exciting, you know.
So if you wanted to get the economy back in history, there are 4 sort of areas that you want to focus on: clothing, rent mortgages or buying a house, food, and fuel. If you can get those prices down, you can have an economic boom. But have any of the policies that we've read, are they affecting any of? I haven't seen it. And then the other thing is education. If you want to have this big industrial boom, you want to really ramp up the education system. So have any of you seen anything within any of his policies that do any of those?
I mean,
Well, this flagship thing of make Brexit work sort of militates against everything you've just talked about, Alex. Until he addresses that, and I hear Darren. I'm not going to argue with anything you've said, but he's got to say that. And of course, Darren sees it from the red wall. I'm down here in the soft south and all the rest of it. But it's very frustrating to hear him say make Brexit work. I mean, the first thing he needs to do is move back towards alignment with Europe, which hopefully he will do.
We've left the EU and we are not looking backwards, we're looking forward. So this is not about rejoining, it's not about going back into the single market, the customs union or freedom of movement. It's about going forward with an ambitious 5-part plan that
retain the current Brexit arrangements. There's no way he's going to get that growth. No way.
No.
So then that leads on very nicely onto Brexit and food shortages. And Max, as you're in Italy, are you short of tomatoes?
No, actually. and I actually posted a picture on Twitter and on Discord today. So I happened to go into my local supermarket. Now I live in a town of about less than 3,000 people, so it's a very small town. And we have 2 supermarkets, and I was in one of them. I didn't check the other one, but I was in one of them, and I posted a picture on Twitter of it. And the tomatoes they're actually tomatoes brought in from Spain. So we also have tomatoes here in Italy, but during the winter, I think most of them are produced in Spain. So we had no problems getting tomatoes, and they were actually on offer, so I could have bought them at half price. But there aren't and because of and we saw it with energy as well. Norway had an agreement with the European Union that if there's a shortage, it will sell to the European Union first before selling to anyone else. And I think Britain lost out there as well. If it had been a member, it would have had access to cheap energy from Norway as well. And then with energy prices in general, the European Union pumped billions into economies. It made a huge amount of money available, and this was used to keep energy prices down. And unfortunately, in the UK, that wasn't possible because, well, for 2 reasons. One, not being part of that energy plan, European energy plan, and second, you have a Tory government who just don't give a crap.
Mm.
No, they don't, do they?
It sums it up pretty well, doesn't it? They don't give a crap.
You can say shit. It's our show.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
They don't give a sewage.
Yeah, it's like as if they can see the end of the road is pretty much nice. So the feeling they're just gonna make hay while they can.
It's like, but you hit the nail on the head there. What was Boris Johnson doing after he resigned? He was having
making millions.
But he was also having a great time. He was like, he wasn't actually he even said that he's not going to implement any policies because he's going to be replaced soon.
Mm.
He was supposed to be sitting down with Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak, remember, during the campaign to replace him. He was supposed to be doing that to put forward a plan to help people during the cost of living crisis. Martin Lewis was begging him to do something, and his response was, well, I'm not getting involved because I'm going to be out the door soon. It's completely ridiculous.
Total narcissist, isn't it? It's totally narcissist. It's not to my benefit, so I don't care.
There's a fighter plane I have to fly around in. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. With his ridiculous hat on. I think Rishi Sunak stole it, when he went to meet Zelensky. He looked like Darth Helmet from Spaceballs, didn't he? Well, that thing on his head, he looks ridiculous.
He doesn't look like the most coordinated of people.
No.
And I've got it. I know someone who actually knew him at uni, and apparently he was absolutely crap at table football. It was really awkward, apparently. So, I mean, if you can't even play that,
Did he ask?
some level of skill, I don't think a fighter pilot is going to.
Did he
gonna
ask you
work in
about
his
what
favour.
business he's in? Jesus Christ.
How's the food up north?
We'll add a chicken biryani before we started, so that was quite nice.
But that's meat. Got plenty of chicken still.
Yeah, had a couple of bits of tomato in, so that was so we'll find it with some wedges.
So, we had Phil on for a debate special, and he's obviously up north, as we mentioned earlier. And he said that the food's going off quicker. He said he was absolutely. Is it going off quicker? Have you noticed the difference? Oh, you have.
I definitely have. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, some
You're down south, aren't you, Rob?
I'm in the southwest, and I've noticed a huge difference with food and vegetables and fruit going off so quickly, and they just don't seem to taste so nice. And I'm guessing it's because they're just taking longer to come into the country, so they're sitting on those lorries for a few days more due to Brexit regulations, and that's what it is. They're not as fresh and they're not lasting as long. It's as simple as that. But I've noticed it so much. Yeah,
So
well, you can actually buy them because there's so many empty shelves down here. I'm not kidding. I was in Sainsbury's a couple of nights ago. Fruit and veg, there were more empty shelves than there were full shelves. I mean, it was just like a ghost town. It was terrible, absolutely terrible. So.
But is it just within the main supermarkets? That's the other interesting thing. So a lot of people on Twitter are saying, go to your local store, or some would go to the farmers markets. But for a lot of people, that isn't an option because it's generally, or a farm store, because it's generally more expensive. And people have already got a problem with the cost of living. So I don't see that as a particularly good solution.
But also,
so, I mean,
in winter, you're not going to be able to get tomatoes at a farmer's market.
No.
Unless they're produced in a greenhouse, but that's going to be more expensive.
Well, that's been an issue because I listened to the NFU. This is a nice segue to Teresa Coffee. I was listening to the NFU. They were saying that one of the problems is greenhouses, but because the electrical prices have gone so high, they can't run it. So they've and on top of that, they've got a labour shortage. Wonder why. So they've shut it down. So it's meant to be producing stuff all year round. Instead of the government stepping in and going, might be a good idea to keep that running. Let's do some sort of subsidy to keep it running. But no, the government have just gone, no, free market.
Exactly.
They're just weird economic hippies, aren't they?
Yeah.
That's the only way I can see it. I'm thinking like political hippies, like pippies. Or,
Pippies. Yeah, I must admit, I've noticed a marked, so that's the word I'm after, degrading of my French Golden Delicious apples. They are not quite as golden as they once were, you know. So I'll get a box of 6, so that means I've got to eat within a couple of days, and don't always do right well for my stomach, like us. But you know what I mean. But yeah, I've noticed marked decline. That's the word I'm after, of quality. So I know what you mean.
So the confusing thing I have is we've got, on the one hand, news reports coming in saying there's smuggling stuff and it's flying through customs because no one's checking.
Right.
And then I've got the other hand where I'm hearing people go, yeah, the food's going off quicker. It doesn't last as long and the quality's gone down. And like some of the stuff they've been smuggling in is like rotten meat. God knows where the hell that was going. I'm teaching at the moment about the Industrial Revolution. And I was reading about some of the acts that they passed in the 1880s and 1870s. One was the Industrial Prevention of Sewage Act, which literally I was like, oh my God, this is like history repeating. Which was literally to stop industrial waste going into the rivers. So you're like, right, so we've literally almost gone full circle by 140 years on that. But the other one was the Food and Standards Agency Act, which one of the examples they gave was that apparently people back in that day, in order to make meat look fresh, would paint it red.
I know they used to put chalk they used to put chalk in flour to keep to make the bread whiter, or to because flour was expensive but chalk was cheap, so they would put chalk.
Cheap as chalk.
Cheap as chalk. Maybe that's where it comes from. Maybe that's where it comes from.
Yeah. But isn't that strange? And I wonder, what were they going to do with the rotten meat? Were they literally going to go and paint it?
Well, you know what, and I think I'm correct when I say this. Chlorinated chicken is where you bleach chicken. When it changes color, when it goes stale, it changes color to a brown color. So what you do is you bleach it, it goes back to white again, and then you can sell it. And it's actually illegal in the US. Now, somebody in the chat can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what I believe what chlorinated chicken is. And you had Tory MPs, Brexiteers, saying, no, we're not going to, after Brexit, we're not going to bring in chlorinated chicken. And then when it became clear that, yeah, we are actually going to do that, they were like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with chlorinated chicken. American people eat it. Of course it's healthy.
But they've done that with everything, haven't they? Because they said the economy was going to be fine, and then it was going to be better than fine. It was going to improve. And now they're saying, it doesn't matter. We weren't interested in the economy.
Sovereignty.
Yeah.
There'd be food shortages is complete and utter rubbish. It's Project Fear, Mark II. It should be utterly, completely, totally disregarded.
Cheap shoes for peasants.
Well, the thing is with Brexit, they were saying it was going to give us the freedom to raise our standards, whereas the EU standards were literally that. They were a baseline that we could improve on. Nobody was stopping us from having higher standards in the EU. But we know that the reason they want to get rid of the EU standards is to lower them, not to raise them. Whether that's food, or the rivers or...
Yeah, and it was the British. It was the British in Europe that were pushing for high standards. That's the whole ironic thing about it. Is this idea that Europe was something else. Britain was leading. Yes. Britain was demanding we need to have these high standards. We need to have the single market. It was because of the British that we have the single market in a sense. And it's so ridiculous that it was the Brexiteers that wanted to get out of everything.
Yeah. The statistic is that 97% of EU laws were either proposed or supported actively by the UK. It's just...
And I wonder how many of them laws we actually suggested as well.
Phil seemed to suggest, again, plugging the last show, Phil seemed to suggest that we co-signed the majority of them, the ones that the Brexiteers are most angry about.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay. I tend to take Phil at his word. I mean, he seems pretty damn good when it comes to his research. So it's a bit like, well, if he said that, it's probably true. He doesn't seem to want to exaggerate or tell falsehoods. Speaking of falsehoods, voter ID.
Will
this affect postal votes?
We could talk about
postal votes. Postal votes is the way around it, Darren. Actually,
well, I'm already doing that because
that's
my mobility's shot to pieces. So
right.
I can't do it now. So I just post ours now, and the rest of our family, we've got 3 kids, and they all vote as well. Yeah,
that's a really
usually because I force them. Yeah.
Darren, it's a good point, and I know I don't know how many people are watching the Sunday roast, but it's a really good point that you make. Is there anybody watching this? If you haven't got your photo ID, your driving license, your passport, whatever, you must apply for a postal vote or get one of these new certificate of authority to vote things, VAC, I think it's called, a voting authority certificate. But people watching this, please do it, because we've got the local elections coming up on the 4th of April. And if you haven't got voter ID and you haven't got a postal vote, you're bollocksed, basically. So listen to Darren, everybody. Get your postal vote sorted out. Definitely, yes.
And then there's Donald Trump. Don't boo, vote.
Max, you're over in Europe, and all, as far as I'm aware, every country in mainland Europe has a mandated ID card that's issued by the government, but we don't have that in the UK, and that's what continental Europeans don't understand about the UK. It's a big deal for us to have voter ID at a polling station, because the majority of Brits don't walk around with voter ID. There are 2 million people that don't have a passport or a driving license or any of the other voter IDs that they're requesting. And guess what? Those 2 million people are generally either the very poorest in society that don't drive or don't take holidays, or they're youngsters under the age of 25 because a lot of them haven't learned to drive yet. And guess what? All those demographic groups skew towards voting Labour. So this is just outright voter suppression by the Tory government. It's absolutely appalling. I'm so angry about it.
And there are also demographics that are impacted the most by many of these policies.
Of course, yeah, quite right, Max. Yeah, absolutely. It is absolutely scandalous. Absolutely scandalous that they've done this.
No, I think Ireland is an exception within Europe, but it's correct. I think most European countries have some sort of ID.
Yeah,
and it's
here in continental ones. Yeah.
In Italy, you need ID everywhere. You're opening a bank account. You're paying, sometimes you're paying a bill on someone else's behalf. You have to show your ID. I don't know if you guys saw there's a clip, maybe Darren saw it. He's usually following these things pretty with the eye of a hawk. There was a Tory MP, a minister this week, I think it was, who was basically saying, well, there are going to be a lot of people who won't be able to vote, but they don't generally vote anyway. I don't know if you guys saw that clip.
Holy crap.
Yeah, I think is that a guy called, I think he's called, is it Lee Healy?
Yeah, Lee something. Not Lee Anderson, but Lee something.
Yeah, he's the levelling up minister. He's now, I think he's local government minister. And he was basically saying, because there's of the people that don't have any photo ID, that don't hold a passport or any of the other things, 1% of them so far have applied for the voter authority certificate. 1%. And he said that shows how well the scheme's working, because 99% of those people are practicing their democratic right not to vote. It's just outrageous. Absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. He actually said that.
Yeah, it's just not. It's like George Orwell double.
But you know where this comes from? It comes from the U.S. It's the Republicans in America who try to make it more and more difficult for especially younger people or ethnic minorities to vote. For example, and maybe somebody can correct me on this, but as far as I know, in Texas, a gun license is valid ID. A student ID is not valid ID. So who do you think is going to come out and vote more? Who's going to be able to vote easier in an easier way?
I mean, this is also reflected, Max, here, just to give you an idea of how corrupt this legislation is. They're allowing senior citizens' rail cards as voter ID, but they're not allowing young persons' rail cards as voter ID.
An Oyster card, isn't it?
Yeah, they're not allowing... I think... They might be allowing Oyster cards.
That's a picture as well.
It's the young person's rail card they're not allowing, and they're not allowing student unions cards, but they're allowing all the senior citizens cards. So it's the youngsters.
I wonder why.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they're tofu or karate guardian readers.
That's right. Yeah.
That's the reason why.
Yeah. That guy's name, by the way, is Lee Rowley. He was the guy you were talking about. He was the minister that's trying to justify this absolute brazen attack on democracy.
I need to take on this notion that there are 2 million people who need a voter ID. That is not correct. It is absolutely not correct, and I hope honourable members will stop reiterating it. Of those 2 million people, which is an estimate, a number of those will not have elections a large number of those will not have elections in their area this year. Secondly, of that group, a number will choose not to vote, much as we would like them to do so, will have chosen never to have voted, and we would encourage them to do so, but ultimately that is what the purpose of a democracy is. People have a right both to vote and not to vote, and we are seeking to encourage them to do so. We're seeking to guarantee that integrity.
Yeah.
Wow, that's horrendous. Because I thought I was going to play a bit of devil's advocate, because I'd read or I'd seen a headline at least suggesting that it was going to affect the elderly as well. But if they're doing sly stuff like that, you're like, right, well, it clearly is biased, which should be illegal, but there's no recourse because the government passed legislation. Well, the courts can't do anything. So then the only thing you've got left to do is to go to the ECHR, which is, I mean...
They're trying to get out of it as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're pulling out of that, and you're going, I don't know, I can't get quite to the bottom of the ECHR point either, because they must know it's linked to the Good Friday Agreement. They cannot be that foolish, surely.
I see it as a tool. It's like, yeah, we're gonna, because if you do a search on Google for news reports with the European Court of Human Rights, you'll find articles from 2015, 2012 about how the Tories were talking. We need to get out. It's a tool they use to say, oh, look, we get out of the European Court of Human Rights, where we'll sort out all our problems. They don't have any intention, because the consequences will be pretty bad. So it's just some red meat to throw to the racists and bigots. Yeah, we're going to get out of this. We're going to take back control. But I don't think they have any real intent. It's like Article 16. Does anyone remember Article 16? How many times did Johnson and Truss and Northern Ireland ministers talk about, we're going to trigger Article 16? Yeah, that went out. That came to nothing.
How long was Article 50 kicked down the road?
Yeah. And the other thing with the ECHR is, of course, they're always looking for a reason why Brexit hasn't worked. It's because it's a Remainers Brexit. It's because Johnson wasn't a real Brexitist, and it's also because of the ECHR. So it's just another thing that they're using as an excuse for why Brexit's been a complete clusterfuck. That's why it's there. So they can't get rid of the ECHR. Otherwise, what are they going to blame then for the failure of Brexit?
Yeah, that's a good point, actually.
Crazy.
Well, I think it's only a matter of time before they start blaming the sun. Literally in the sky.
Newspaper. No.
Yeah.
They'll blame the lava lamp, Alex.
Yes.
All hail the lava lamp.
All hail the lava lamp.
Hail the lava lamp.
Or they'll blame our guitars that are hung up on the wall as well.
Oh dear.
It's all you lot complaining and using your free speech. All driven with one purpose, and nothing else matters. Free thought, free thinking. No. Bad. Very bad.
No, I was just going to say on this, just checking my facts on this this voter ID stuff, I can confirm that senior rail cards are allowed, but student cards and young persons travel passes are not valid. So people under the age of 25 are at a significant disadvantage. So sorry, it's my thing.
It's good that you say that, because it'd be a terrible situation where a lot of young people would turn up believing that their ID is valid, because they'll see elderly people using their ID and then they're turned away.
Exactly.
I've not seen a single campaign on TV or on Twitter to get people registered.
No.
And we're all in politics. Has anyone seen any campaigns?
No.
It's a joke.
And
it's an absolute joke.
Yeah, nor of the electorate as a whole. People just aren't aware of it. It's just absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely crazy.
It should be something the Labour Party should be pushing.
Yeah.
Because if you could get people to turn up and register to get the ID or whatever, then you can chat with them. You can explain to them your policies, and then when they go to vote, they'll be like, well, who should I vote for? I'm sitting on the fence. If there's still anyone sitting on the fence, should I vote for the people who told me about their policies and their policies I agree with, or should I vote for the corrupt party?
Yeah. I've got to say, as Laura Koonsberg would say, that's quite a charge, Max.
Quite a charge.
Nice.
Calling Boris Johnson a liar? How?
That's quite a charge. Really poor derogation of duty that they're not covering anything like this.
But are you all struggling to cover all the stories and keep up? Because I am.
Tell me about the amount of people have said, have you seen this? Have you seen that? Like, good God, I'm just a one-man band here. I can't keep up.
We need to be like GB News, pushing out 500 videos a day, something like that.
Yeah. Who's going to be Anne Widdecombe?
I had a GB News presenter on my channel actually last month, a guy called Peter Spencer, who's very interesting actually. But I had a lot of kickback from some of my viewers. How dare you have somebody from GB News on you?
But you have to have people in. Like we can't stay in an echo chamber. Like there's no point us speaking, preaching to the converted or preaching to the choir.
Yeah, exactly.
we need to be breaking through that that barrier.
Yeah.
Good for you, Rob,
Yeah,
on that one. Yeah, bravo. We've done it. We've had a couple.
Yeah.
That
Like,
truth to
there's no
power guy.
point. Yeah, it's
I
like
heard
there's,
stories.
yeah, it's like there's no
Slagging off bloody Starmer.
yeah. It's like there's no point standing outside urinating in. You need to be on the inside urinating now, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you minded my language there.
Very much Tory policy. Right.
Yeah.
This is on another segue note. We've had someone ask us to moderate a debate between someone who thinks that Starmer's a Tory and someone who thinks that or like Tory versus his actual policies. Well, what do you think about? I mean, how well versed are you guys on Starmer's policies?
What policies? I thought the policy is we're not the Tories. That's basically the policy.
Oh, that's mean. Like, so he does have some policies, bless him. He wants to make Britain an industrial hub. He wants a green energy run. He wants us to be a green energy powerhouse.
Yeah, he wants this. The one I like particularly is he wants the UK energy company to be state-owned. That there's going to be a GB Energy, which I think would be great.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Had enough of this private shit. It's bollocks, isn't it? When it's like key resources is bollocks.
Yeah.
He wanted to do a sovereign wealth fund. That was something else that came up. He wants to have a proper national infrastructure plan, a proper industrial strategy plan. But I'm looking at it and going, this is all 1990s stuff. This is all shit compared to, like, without you going back in the EU, you can't do this.
But he said he wants to make Brexit work.
Yeah.
I'd say the 1990s sort of left wing, very socialist.
Yeah, no, but I think what he wants to do is he wants to play it very safe. He doesn't want to be too radical, because I think that's the problem that many people saw Jeremy Corbyn. People agreed with the policies, but they saw Jeremy Corbyn as too radical back in 2019.
What you just said, Mark, is I totally agree with. Jeremy Corbyn's policies were just top notch, but he was just not the right guy to deliver.
A bad salesman.
Yeah. He was my MP for when I lived in Finsbury Park in London. He was a knob then, to be honest, sort of anti-Semitic. I'm not a big Corbyn fan, but I love I loved his policies, but it just wasn't a leader.
Zoe Gardner ripped Gullis apart.
If these people who in Calais are legitimate refugees, why are they not claiming asylum in France, Italy, Spain or Greece? Why do they need to come to the United Kingdom?
As I'm sure you'll be aware, because I think the previous witness did say this, the vast majority of people who seek asylum worldwide, firstly, 86% of refugees and displaced people worldwide remain in the country neighbouring the one they have fled. So 86% of people remain in developing countries. France received 3 times as many asylum applications as we did last year. Most people stop as soon as they feel safe. But the people who are making their way to England and who specifically wish to come to the UK do so because they have ties to this country, because they either have served with our military, as in the case of people from Afghanistan, or have family members, as with the Syrian client that I mentioned, that JCWI is representing, or speak the language because of our colonial history and have other ties of kinship and history here. So there are people who have legitimate ties to the UK, and there is no good reason why they should particularly have their claims assessed in France if they do not wish to. It doesn't really work for us to say to the French that, given that we're geographically located slightly to the west of you, none of these refugees are our responsibility and they're all on you, because France can say the same thing, and then Italy can say the same thing, and then the entire international refugee protection system will crumble. So
we had Jim Jeffries as manager, and he had this flash of genius that, pre-season, most teams get themselves prepared by setting up the formation, how we're going to play. No, we decided to go to Catterick Army Barracks and spend 20 days humping heavy logs about. And some strange reason we didn't get promoted that season. I can't think why. Most football teams have got, footballers with exotic names like Marcos Solio, Julio Iglesias. Ours is Andy Cook.
No nonsense.
Geordie lad Geordie lad called Andy Cook.
Yeah.
As long as there's no Lee Andersons, that's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Could you imagine him being the manager?
Jesus.
What? Why would I want to give him a decent diet? 30p for my players. That's all I need.
They last about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
He gets sacked in no time with that bollocks.
What do you mean they want Lucas Aid? Council pop. Just get it out of the tap.
Back in my day.
Yeah. Yeah, back in my day.
Back in my... God. Well, I know we're going on a football tangent. I am sorry. But fucking hell, he is from Nottingham, whose son is basically Brian Clough. Like, you couldn't get a fucking antithesis if you tried. Like, Brian Clough literally has a statue. Like, you can read up on his political views. He was a strong Labour supporter. Oh God, there's literally an amazing quote where he's like,
I've made a few bob, I've had a car, I've got a nice house, and I don't see any reason why everybody shouldn't have that. People who I've met sometimes with a few bob and who've got on don't think everybody else should have a few bob and get on. And I think the opposite. I think everybody can have it.
Wow, like that's are we recording?
Yes. I still remember.
Yeah.
Mike Graham got personal with one of our previous guests. He got right in the face of Marina and Gemma. Got personal. Interestingly about football. He made some sort of like snide comment.
Yeah, he did.
She's married to a footballer.
Yeah. What's that got to do with sucking eggs?
It reminds me of that Margaret Thatcher
Mike Graham, the concrete farmer, that guy, yeah.
Morning, Mike.
Oh, hello. What are you glued to, Cameron?
Just your screen, unfortunately.
Unfortunately? What do you do for a living, Cameron?
I'm a carpenter.
A carpenter, right. So how safe is that for the climate?
Well, I work with timber, which is a much more sustainable material rather than concrete. I also
But you work with trees that have been cut down then, don't you?
It's a sustainable building practice.
How is it sustainable if you're killing trees?
Because it's regenerative, you can grow trees.
Right. Well, you can grow all sorts of things, can't you?
Well, you can't grow concrete.
You can. See you, Cameron. Cheerio. That was Cameron. He grows trees and then cuts them down and then makes things from them. Brilliant. Marvellous. I don't think I ever want to talk to any of those people.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Bloody hell.
Yeah,
I got to buy with him about his dog as well. Some guy tweeted to some bloke something along the lines of, "Oh, shut up, you fool. I'm going to go off and talk to my dog." Of all the weird like sort of comebacks you could come up with. So I was a bit vicious. So I don't like Graham. I was a bit like, you talk to dogs. Do you have a pork chop round your neck in order to get him to come over? And he actually responded. And the best bit was, someone jumped in on his behalf and said, "Oh, look at these silly morons making these comments." And I twigged that their profile picture was that of a dog. I can't fucking make it up. I literally went back and said, "Are you the dog that he talks to?"
Oh dear.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye.